This university is licensed to be a research institution, and we get our license by meeting a number of obligations. We need to have a process in place, which we have. We need to have a research ethics committee, which we have. We need to require our researchers to apply for research ethics approval, and they do it through a process which is formalised and acknowledged by the federal government. We need to report on that every year, and every year I get a letter saying, thank you very much for your report, you're meeting all the obligations, and we allow you to continue being a research institution. Last year we had an interesting response. We have tried to be as honest as we can, and we do acknowledge to them if we have an issue. We had an issue with compliance, and they acknowledged that we had the issue, but they also acknowledged that we were doing something satisfactory about it, and yes, you can continue being a research institution. So that's quite a high order obligation, and you can see where the groundwork obligations sit with you as academics and our students as members of the university having an obligation to apply for ethics approval, for us to have a process, a committee that then reviews it against the standards and authorises that approval. And when we meet that kind of compliance process as we do, then we're allowed as an institution to continue doing our research. It's when we breach that we put that at risk. I don't know of any institution in Australia that has been suspended, but it's entirely possible. It's more likely that we have an area of research that misbehaves itself for some reason or another, and that we are asked to stop conducting that research. That's more likely to happen internally, but it hasn't happened yet, so we're all very well behaved. There are a couple of guiding documents, and if you haven't seen the National Statement on the Ethical Conduct of Human Research, your homework tonight is to go and download it. It's a free download. It's easy reading. It gets reviewed periodically. It used to be a 5-year review of the whole thing. National Health and Medical Research Council, who manage it, are on a rolling review. So when issues have to be updated, as for example, the world of stem cell research is evolving really quickly, so the ethical parameters around it are evolving. They'll be updating it. So when you need it, go in and download the most recent version of it. And what I'd ask you to do, if you haven't done so, is have a browse through it. Read most especially the first couple of chapters, because that sets the definitions and it talks about the principles. Even if you don't ever end up doing human research ethics application, it's actually a really powerful statement about what makes good research. And if you follow the principles in there, you will design your projects and your programs to work as well as they possibly can. We can't guarantee they will work, but you can actually minimize the tripwires that inevitably turn up in research. And if we can do that, then we're well ahead. The Australian Code for Responsible Conduct for Research is a somewhat larger document, but it's again one that all researchers should know about, should probably have had a look through. Lots of more detailed advice on lots of areas of how to plan, implement, design, put into practice research in a way which is ethically sound, is practically sound. And the bottom line with both of these documents is that what we want to do is to be able to ask research that is useful and meaningful, it has merit. We don't want to ask the sort of trivial stuff that the rag trade magazines, what's the proportion of men that wear red ties? Yeah, not really much worth asking. We don't ask that as scholars. Well, maybe we do if we're a cultural theorist, but mostly we wouldn't. We need to ask sensible, deep, useful questions that will do something useful for our society. We need to design it in sound and rigorous ways that are recognized by our individual scholarly communities. So within our disciplines, what is the methodology that's validated, that's been shown to be sound? And can we design it in a way which will work? And I say to people, how do we know it will work? Well, it will work with the best guess. It will generate data which is sound and sensible and rigorous, and in itself has got a reasonably good chance of actually answering our questions with sensible answers. That's as good as we can get. We have to remember we have a responsibility, a public responsibility as a public university. Our results, however obscure they may sometimes seem, and we wonder whether anybody ever reads them, potentially have the capacity to influence public debate influence public policy and practice. If we are doing teaching and learning research, it may be that something that we do will influence the next generation of how school curricula are designed. If we get it well, we're going to make a positive contribution. If we get it wrong, we have a potential to do a huge amount of damage. Public policy based on shoddy research is going to be bad public policy. It could be a lot of money, it could be a lot of grief attached to that if we get it wrong. So this is what this is trying to do, is help you make sure the research you do is as sound and solid and has got as good a chance of actually achieving something sensible at the end. Now, what we can't do is actually guarantee it will work. So the defense that I've seen from one PhD student is, but why have they failed me? Because you gave me ethics approval. It must be good. Anyway, there's a little bit of obligation there, but those two documents, if you haven't seen them, get hold of them, be aware of them.